if John Williams is picked, it could set off a backlash over diversity issues at the central bank. Joining us now is Bloomberg's Jeanna Smialek. And we need to make clear that these are just reports that John Williams is the leading candidate. But how far along are we in the selection process?
Right. So the reports are that he's a leading candidate and that the board in Washington has been looped in at the process at this point. So there are a few names out there. They are aware of those and they're offering feedback. But where we aren't yet is the point where the Class B and C directors up here at the New York Fed make a formal vote and say John Williams is our pick for this job, and then ask for approval from Washington. And that's what really has to happen to finalize this process. So we're sort of at the bottom of the eighth. We're not in the ninth inning yet.
Got it.
So what does it tell you about the fact that there's been some backlash to the possibility of Williams taking over the helm here?
Right. So the Wall Street Journal first broke this story on Saturday, and what you saw was an almost immediate backlash against this idea coming from groups like Fed Up, which is an advocacy group that really favors low interest rates for longer and a real focus on full employment. And what they're saying is we need a more diverse candidate who's going to be aware of sort of the plight that people of color, that minorities face in this country. And John Williams, while very qualified as an economist, is not that person.
He's qualified as an economist, but there are questions about how well suited he is for the job of New York Fed president, because that role really requires someone who knows markets intimately, and that might not be one of his strengths.
Yeah, so I think this is an excellent point. John Williams often likes to joke that he doesn't watch market moves which are jumpy on a day-to-day basis because it doesn't make sense for an economist focused on the longer term. He often quips that he doesn't even have a Bloomberg on his desk.
The shame.
So.
I know. Horror be horrors.
And so yeah, but I mean, I think that does raise some real questions for a job at the New York Fed, just because it is a role that is so deeply integrated with capital markets, financial markets. You really need an eye on the pulse here.
What is the implication of there being no leader at the New York Fed if there is not a candidate that is appointed after Bill Dudley leaves?
So I think the plan is that there is going to be a leader before Bill.
The answer is that's not happening. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they do seem on track to make that happen. I mean, I think that's a conversation to have if it seems like the process is getting derailed at any point, but we haven't seen any signs of that yet.
You said the government needs to approve it. Who within the government needs to approve it?
So the way this works is the board of directors up here in New York, so the Fed's board of directors, will take a vote and suggest a person. And then the board of governors in Washington, so the currently Lael Brainerd, Randy Quarles, and Jerome Powell, will need to sign off on that. Now, it's really interesting. We've done FOIA requests on these votes, and they're basically a formality. You know, in recent history, the governors in Washington always just check off on this point of the process. I think the implication there is they're probably weighing in throughout the process, and so they kind of have a clear idea, but we don't know exactly what goes on behind closed doors.
I ask because, for instance, Congress is not involved, are they?
Yes.
Maxine Waters has been very outspoken on the need for more diverse candidates at the central bank.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, certainly we've seen a real call from the Democratic side of the aisle asking for a more diverse process, and specifically about the New York Fed process. We've seen open letters, we've seen op-eds, we've seen this real push for a diverse look in the New York Fed. I think this is a thing for the New York Fed and the Fed system to be aware of, because it does seem like there's some legislative attention, and while the Congress isn't controlling the Fed, they can legislate around it.